Hey everyone, this is Diesel from Imagineyourgoddess doing a deck profile today. By popular request, I am doing a deck profile of a coral build that has recently shown up in our meta. This deck is not anywhere near as powerful as some of the other builds of Bermuda's, Prism being the main S tier deck, but coral is fun. It has a lot of potential, and maybe with some extra Bermuda support or the right player behind it, it could really get going. So let's stop wasting time. I'll start with Angelic Star Coral. My starter is the starter of the chain. It lets you look at the top 7 cards when you ride the grade 1 on top of it for a 2 or the 3, and if not, it goes into the rear guard. You really want to hit that grade 1 ride, because this kind of ride chain, the Duke .5 ride chain as I like to call it, is fairly consistent. So let's move into triggers. We've obviously got 4 heal. I love 4 heal. That's just the way it is. 4 draw hits next. And then we have 8 crit triggers. Now pretty much you can choose your triggers depending on your style. If you like 5Ks like I do, you can just pick the 5K ones. If you want to try with the quartets, that's fine too. Me personally, I like to have that static 5 because if I have to put a booster behind Vert or a pumped up Aurora, I want it to be a 5K at least. Okay, so that's my triggers. Let's go into the grade 1s. First set of grade 1s is the Fresh Star Coral. She's the grade 1. If the grade 0 is in the soul, you get +1. And if you ride a grade 2 that's not the grade 2 of this, you get to search the top 7, and if you find one, you get to ride it on top of it. So not only does it fix the consistency of getting the grade 2 on the field, but it also makes it so that when you are looking, you can look for the grade 3 if you don't have it yet, and give yourself a better chance of hitting a more consistent ride chain. The downside to these effects is that they don't have any effects that are when you ride on top of the ride. But that's okay, because it hits a nice consistent pattern. Also, 4 perfect shields. Have we talked enough about perfect shields for you? Good. Also, 4 of the 8K vanilla booster, Sedna. Now, Sedna is not normally a very popular card for the Bermuda builds I build. There's just usually something better to play in her place, or something more fancy. One build of this deck, which I'll talk about later, might have her replaced with a different card. But in general, I just like to have 21K attackers, and her with Vert as the Vanguard will often be a 21 hitter. So it's worth using. Finally, I use 2 copies of Prism Image Clear. Clear is the one that when it returns to your hand from the rear guard, you may Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your Bermuda Triangle and get 4,000 power. Now, I haven't decided whether I like 2 or if I'd like to take out a Sedna and make 3. Because the benefit of this effect is that Coral can attack second, and you can return a rear guard to your hand. So you could return this to your hand and give one of your other attackers a 4K boost, which may be enough to push them over the edge if your opponent got a shield or something like that, and you want to just make sure that there's going to be another attack hitting, or another attack hitting for better. So it's something to think about. Those are the grade 1s. Let's move into the grade 2s. Grade 2, first one, is obviously the grade 2 Coral, Shiny Star. Okay, she's 10K if you have the grade 1 in the soul. And when she attacks a Vanguard and it hits, you can choose a Bermuda Triangle in the front row rear guard and the back row rear guard if you also have Fresh Star Coral in the soul, and return them both to your hand. Okay, so that's, you get the front row either way, as long as it hits, and you get the rear if it hits, the back row rear if it hits and you have Fresh Star Coral in. So that allows you to play some attackers that you're worried about your opponent trying to kill, on the hopes that they will let that attack through and you get to fix your field. It also allows you to play down triggers as boosters in the hopes that you'll get them back into your hand. It often works. I like it. Next one up, 4 copies of the 10K Vanilla. That is Prism Smile Ligurian. Ligurian is your base power hitter. You could use the top Idol Aqua if you wanted to. It's all about flavor. I personally like the art better on Prism, and I happen to have 4 Prisms where I don't have 4 top Idol Aquas at the moment. Finally, for grade 2s, we end with 3 Prism Image Rosa. Rosa is an 11K attacker if you have an LB4 Vanguard. So, both Vanguards in this deck at grade 3 are LB4, so it will most likely be an 11K attacker. There's also not a lot that you can choose that would be better, because the Prism attacker doesn't help very much in this deck if you end up writing Coral, and the other attackers are just sort of kind of in between. I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Finally, let's go into grade 3s. Grade 3, Prism Image Vert, 4 copies. Okay? Now, she is the Break Ride, and for those who don't know Break Rides, I'll go through a brief explanation. It's got Limit Break 4, that when you ride it with a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, you can draw a card, and then you choose up to one of your Bermuda Triangle rearguards and return them to your hand. Sorry, up to 2 of your Bermuda Triangle rearguards. Then your Vanguard, that is whichever Vanguard rode Vert, gets plus 10,000 power until end of turn. Okay? She also has a continuous effect that the number of Bermuda Triangle rearguards you have is 4 or more, she gets plus 2,000. That's where the 21 comes from that I was talking about earlier. Image Vert plus Sedna is 19, and then if you have 4 or more rearguards, then she will be a 21. She also has Lord, which means you cannot or do not want to use her in a deck with anything other than Bermuda Triangles in it, because she can't attack if there are any non-Bermuda Triangles on the field. Finally, we end with the grade 3 Coral, Aurora Star Coral. When she attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 2 if you have 4 or more damage, and then you get to Soul Charge 1, choose a Bermuda Rearguard, and return it to your hand. She's also an 11K if the grade 2 Coral is in Soul. So that combo I was talking about earlier is you have Clear on the field somewhere. You attack with that column, boosting with Clear. Then you use Coral's ability when she attacks, Counterblast 2, Soul Charge 1, and then pull Clear back into your hand. That gives this an additional 5,000 power. If it had been Break Ride, then you would have an additional 15 altogether from that effect. Plus, you can put Clear's effect somewhere on the board. If you need it on the Vanguard, if you're sure they don't have a perfect guard to stop you, go ahead and put it on the Vanguard and pressure that last damage. If not, put it on the rear guard. Try to get some damage pressure going there. The effect of this deck allows you to pull cards back into your hand to have a better hand resource management, and it allows you to trigger some effects to add pressure. It's all about high pressure, which is why I go for the 8 crit 4 draw build. Now, this build showed a little bit of success at our most recent tournaments. It wasn't played by one of us, it was played by a friend of ours. But she did very well. She top 4'd, and she also showed a lot of promise. If she hadn't made a couple play mistakes, she might have gone up to the top 2. Now, a couple things I want to talk about this build are augmentations to this build. One of the suggestions that our friend has made to this is to drop Sednas for Perlas and drop either the Vanilla 10K or drop Rosa for Perla. Perla, I don't know. But the point is that you would get the freebie draw plus hand advantage anytime you hit with that column, and you could bring back the card that gives that advantage with Coral's effect. Now, it works fairly well that way. As far as theory goes, it works pretty well. The problem with it is that you will be taking out an 8K for a 7K booster, and you'll be taking out a 10K or a potential 11K for a 9K interceptor. And getting rid of these power numbers is a little difficult because if you're going against cross-ride decks in your meta, you have to deal with the number 18. And you won't be hitting the number 18 very often with Perla Perla. You will, however, hit 18 with 10K Attacker and Sedna. So it's just something to think about. You guys can decide whether or not you like that or if you like this particular build. I encourage you to try it because even though it isn't S tier and it isn't the highest marking on the thing, it does show you some really interesting effects that Bermuda can have. And if you're ready and willing to play Bermudas because of the effects that they have, this lets you toy around with it a lot. And it is fairly reliable, consistent on the chain, and fun. And fun is what it's all about, right? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me some things that you might do differently in a coral build if you'd like to. Also, remember that we will be soon, the weekend of September 15th, we'll be going up to Chicago for the regionals there, hopefully qualifying for nationals. Imagine Your Goddess will be there, as well as many, many friends from our meta. Be sure to come up and say hi to us if you see us. I don't know how you'll recognize us unless you hear our voices. But anyway, we'll hope to see you there. This is Diesel from Imagine Your Goddess, signing out.